Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Claudio, your favorite realtor, aka Cloud E, or non-generic Eric, because I keep it real with you. Welcome to Let's Get Real podcast interviews, where I interview interesting, fun, and successful individuals who have devoted themselves to their craft in order to share with you, the viewer, a real perspective of what people are actually doing to reach their goals and live a happy, fulfilling life in today's world. Today's guest is a community leader, someone who did not let where they come from determine their destination. This guest has taken on the responsibility of making a daily effort to improve the everyday life of others and being a voice for people like you and me. A humble, hardworking man who earned a position as the youngest city council member of LA County from 2020 to 2022, as well as earning multiple degrees, including a master's in public administration from USC. Please welcome current Bell Garden City Council member and my former classmate, Jorgel Chavez. Let's get a little clap going. Get excited. Pretend there's an audience here.
Appreciate
When
that,
it's going to be like Oprah, bro. We're going to have a whole bunch of people here, man, looking at you.
I'm loving it, man.
Yeah, brother. So I appreciate you being on the show, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate that.
For sure. Is it true that you're the first person in your family to graduate from high school, bro?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
First person, huh?
First person, yeah, man.
Talk to me about your background, bro. Where do you come from?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know where to start exactly. You know, middle school, high school.
In a nutshell, like.
Yes. So
Go ahead.
I'll just kind of take it through it, man.
Yeah.
Grown up pretty much in my whole life in Sela, Southeast LA, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, right now, I'm a councilman for the city of Bell Gardens.
Yeah.
That's my home, man. That's my community. Grew up there for pretty much most of my life in BG.
Cool.
But I've lived in Huntington Park, Maywood, Bell, Linwood, you name it. All of Sela has been pretty much my area, my community, right? That's what I consider home.
For sure.
So I'm 25 years young. Graduated from Bell Gardens High School, 2015, right? Like all of us.
BG.
And BG, that's what we about, man. Lancers all day, every day. And upon graduating, try to go to the East Coast. I wanted to study government, right? And
Really?
I wanted to be in DC, man. I said, what better opportunity for me to do political science than in Washington, DC, where like there's actually like the president and the Capitol and all that, right? So,
Logically, right.
Right, yeah, man. So anyways, I unfortunately, it didn't work out because all the universities I applied to didn't accept me. So
Okay.
I only got accepted to one, which was San Francisco State. I faced the reality and I said, okay, well, I got to go to a 4-year. So I went to San Francisco State upon graduating high school. Turns out that SF was not for me.
Okay.
The Bay, it was a little bit different.
Right.
So I came back home, went to Long Beach City College, did about 2.5 years there, graduated in 2018, transferred over to USC, got my master's in public admin in 2021, and got my bachelor's in political science.
Nice.
And, got elected to my city council in 2020.
Nice.
And, just blessed every day, man.
Yeah,
Blessed.
absolutely, man. Thank you for sharing that. It's really cool to see people come from a place where if you let those circumstances of where you come from bring you down, they will. Like, you could use every excuse to not have graduated high school, educated yourself the way you have. Nobody in my family's ever done it, so why am I? You didn't let that stop you, which I admire. Are you also first generation raised in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So it gets pretty interesting, right? So I've always kind of been, like I say, like first generation and a half sometimes because my dad's from San Francisco. He was born in the city.
Okay.
But like, I'd probably say like at 10, they took him to Mexico, and that's how my parents met. So,
Gotcha.
my mom's from Michoacan, and, but pretty much like my grandparents from my dad's side, they were also from Mexico too. So it was just happened that he was born here.
I see.
So in a way, like he didn't graduate high school. I don't think he graduated middle school. So,
Gotcha.
it was always been difficult. Like mom did graduate, like I think high school, but over there in Mexico.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, that's pretty much been the story. I'm an only child. I don't have siblings.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I'm an only child. I don't have siblings. And yeah, man, I think that it's always been for me, being an only child now, like I got to do everything I can to take care of my parents, you know, so always been there, continue to be there, and anything I could do to support,
Talk about breaking generational curses, man. Because that's what it takes, that one person to break the ceiling, and then everyone else can follow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have kids in the future and siblings that come along. Now you set a new standard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's the new standard that everybody's going to have to follow.
Yeah.
Which is something I've done too, man. I really feel that I've reached heights with my career that now I feel everybody sees, okay, Eric did it. Mm-hmm. We can too. You know what I mean? And being that example you know, it's a good feeling, but it's also a heavy responsibility, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because I remember coming into the real estate industry, always praying and asking, I want to be the hero for my family. I want to be that leader, you know? But when it comes time to be a hero, when they're asking for your help,
Yeah, yeah.
it becomes a difficult decision because, you know, you asked for this.
Yeah.
You know? But sometimes it may not be easy.
Mm-hmm.
So good on you, man, for setting that
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, you got
know?
to, man. You got to.
Yeah.
You got to.
So you went to school, you educated yourself. Tell us how you decided to become a city council member, man.
Yeah.
What made you interested in doing that, and how did that come along?
I think for me, what really inspired me, right? This is, you know, so I ran in 2020,
Yeah.
you know, and the pandemic is like, you know, in the midst. And
Yeah.
there was, for the moment, you know, I was kind of hesitant at first, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously it was a pandemic. I was going to be overspent, right? It takes a lot of money sometimes to do, you know, to run for office. Right?
I saw you only raised like $7,000.
That's about 6,005 around there.
Yeah.
But you know, if
That's
you
all
run,
it took.
Yeah, man, that's all it took, man.
Beautiful.
And you know, but again, I subsidized the other costs by putting in work. You know, putting in
course.
work every day, knocking doors, talking to voters. You know, I knocked on like maybe 75% of the city myself. You know,
Really?
so you know, I'd have a skateboard, and my skateboard's still in my car right now. And now I use it. Now I use it in my day job. You know,
Yeah.
as an organizer. So, you know, I went to every door I could, told them about myself. I told them that, you know, there was no special interest behind me, man. It really just was about the people, you know, putting
Right.
the people, making sure that they had a seat at the table. And for me, it was all about responsibility, integrity, and transparency, right? Making
Right.
sure that what I told people in the beginning, it ain't going to change, you know, over time. I'm not going to get changed, you know. So, you know, obviously I've been blessed, you know, to this day, you know, I tell folks, give me a call, you
Yeah.
know, let's have a conversation, you know.
Right.
Perhaps we're not going to agree, but I mean, maybe we can meet in the middle somehow. You know, we got to
Right.
compromise together, you know?
Right.
And I think it goes the same way for my colleagues. You know, we're all from very different, we have different ideas of how we
Yeah.
want to approach certain situations, you know, and different, we have our own biases, right? You know,
Right.
we're humans, we got biases of our own experiences. So like I tell folks, we got to meet somewhere in the middle,
Right.
you know?
That's what it takes, is having the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, because when you have emotions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you don't address those emotions by having the conversation, your head just goes and thinks whatever it wants. Like, that's what I tell my close friends, such as Gmoe. Shout out Gmoe behind the camera.
Hey, shout out.
You know, Gmoe and I have been close since freshman year of high school, messing around. Now we're adults, right? Doing projects together, such as this podcast. And then we did Food Drive Festival. Did you see the event we did a few years ago?
Yeah.
Right, over at the church?
Yeah, touch point. You guys
yeah.
gave a PS5 away. I remember I saw that.
Yeah, yeah. So I always tell Gmoe and other people that I care about, right? If there's a difficult conversation that we have to have, let's have it.
Yeah.
You know, because if I feel a certain way, like if Gmoe acted some certain way, and I don't talk to him about it, or if he has an opinion and I don't talk to him about it, then it just that's where it gets complicated. And you know, that's what you said. Let's have the conversation, even though we're biased, even though we have different opinions. Let's meet somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
so that way we can continue on a healthy relationship.
That-
you know,
that's
whether
what
that
it's
be
about.
friends, whether that be city council member to resident,
Colleagues,
you know, colleagues.
It happens all the
that.
time at work, you know.
Yeah.
Happens all the time at work.
So that's a principle I like to apply a lot, is be willing to have a difficult conversation with the people that you care about.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's going to progress us forward
Exactly.
in any scenario.
Exactly.
You know, I talked to you last night about a few topics that we wanted to go over. I've been in the real estate industry now for 7 years. This month, March, I'll complete 7 years.
Congrats, man.
Thank you, bro. Ever since we graduated high school.
That's huge.
So, you know, I did want to touch the topic of real estate and construction, right? Because as people like me and you, coming from the bottom,
Yeah.
trying to make it to the top, there's certain perspectives on laws that it's hard to like be one-sided on, you know? Like, for example, construction, right? I don't see too much construction happen in Bell Gardens,
Yeah.
right? But I've worked in Redondo Beach for a few years, see a lot of construction going on there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I think about why. Why is that? I think, okay, a builder comes in finds a lot in Bell Gardens, wants to build it. They got to make money, and it's so expensive to build now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if they want to make money because it costs so much money to build it, they got to charge X amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now housing is not affordable,
Yeah.
you know? So, but at the same time, these builders are improving the city, right? By just beautifying it,
Mm-hmm.
bringing fresh properties. There's a lot of taxes that they got to pay, and
Fees and all that.
fees
Licenses
and all that.
and stuff.
Everything, and they're employing a lot of people in the area,
Exactly.
building the properties. So it's tough to see both perspectives, because it's like, okay, this guy's improving the city, but he puts them up for sale or puts them up for rent. He's got to rent them for a high amount.
Yeah.
And now everybody in the area is like going like, man, I can't afford to live
Yeah,
here no more. So there's real estate's a broad topic, but on construction, what's your opinion on that, man?
I think and I'm glad that you touched on this question, especially because if you're experienced, man, you obviously in the real estate business for 7 years. That says a lot. I think on the topic of construction, there's been a lot of projects in terms of naming national. There's been the government that's kind of gone in there and they've done federal housing, some sort of projects like that. Fun fact: yesterday I was driving down from LA going back to Linwood, and I was going through, I don't know what street that was exactly, but it was down Willowbrook. It was around that Willowbrook area. It was in Watts.
Okay.
And there was the Imperial Courts. That's what they're called. It's like, it looked like projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to look this up. Turns out it's one of the biggest projects that was federally created by the federal government, or some sort of federally subsidized by the federal government west of the Mississippi. And I was like,
one of the biggest,
yeah.
Okay.
West of the Mississippi. So
I wasn't aware it was that big.
Yeah, man. So I was kind of surprised about it, right? So in terms of construction, development, zoning, as far as our city in Bell Gardens, we're kind of all built out.
Yeah.
We're one of the most packed cities. Our communities, and I think all of us in this room, we grew up in that city.
Right.
There's people we know people that live 5-6 people in a 1-bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get by. And it's like that all over Southeast LA. Bell Gardens, Bell, Maywood, Cudahy, Huntington Park, Southgate, Linwood. And that's one of the issues that we constantly face, where we're getting put pressure a lot of times to build more housing, but we don't have space to build.
Right.
I wouldn't even say it's necessarily about the money, because there's always opportunities for us to find grants. There's all this push for affordable housing in our cities. Luckily I'm able to speak about this. Not too long ago, I think last year, maybe mid-November, October, we approved this project. It's 100 units. 18 of them are for sale. The rest are for rent. And it's all affordable.
Where at?
It's down Shoal Street.
Okay.
Shoal Street, and it's right next to Julia Asmus Park.
Okay.
It's going to be like this gated area, sort of,
100
community.
units?
100 units.
18 for sale, the rest for rent.
The rest for rent,
Okay.
yes. And it's all affordable.
Okay.
Right? And we made sure, when we talk about affordability, we're not talking about LA County affordability. We're talking about Bell Gardens affordability, right?
Yeah.
Because LA County affordability is going to take into account cities like Pasadena, Malibu, Beverly Hills, the West Side, all South Bay. And those communities are nothing like my community of Bell Gardens. If we want to put an equation that's made up of, some sort of average, let's consider the neighboring communities around the LA River.
You're right. You're right, because it does change. When I'm pricing properties as a realtor, you look at values. I can't compare a value of Bell Gardens single family residence versus a Southgate one, because to the people who don't know and don't understand the neighborhood, it's just all like, oh, that's just a few miles down, right? Oh, yeah. But it's completely
R1,
different.
R2, residential zones. That's huge, man.
Have you heard about the new laws coming out about changing commercial into residential, allowing commercial to be built out into residential space without having to rezone it? Have you heard of that?
I think I've seen something like that. And in fact, in our city, so there's like R1, R2, R3, R4.
Yeah.
And we created, maybe within the last 2 meetings or something. So we meet every second and fourth Monday. So maybe it was maybe a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
And we had on the agenda to switch the zoning on one of the areas down Gage and Eastern. So there's the 76, there's the Chevron, and then it's right next to La Chiva Loca. So all that area is now going to be considered R4 or something, and now it could be commercial, and then on the top, housing.
That's great.
So
that'd be excellent.
So that's happening, right? And I think for me, again, is okay, is it going to be affordable for the community?
Mm-hmm.
What schools are nearby, right? So make it accessible for perhaps parents that want to move in, where they're going to be able to go to school for the kids. So that's starting to happen, right? And that's maybe we did that change because of that law. Because of that law.
I'm glad that at least the city is embracing these laws. You'd be surprised how many cities I hear about fighting off these these kind of laws that are actually providing more opportunities for people to live?
It's difficult, man. I think it's difficult because, you know, I've seen the position those cities are taking, you know, and by no means am I, you know, like a huge advocate about, you know, making what happened in the Arts District in Sela, or what happened in, you know, what's another community? And we've seen it all over the place, man. Boyle Heights is now starting to become Highland Park, Echo Park, Eagle Rock, you know, Silver Lake, Los Files, dude. Like I used to be all like gente, you know, that used to be our raza right there. But now you can't go. I mean, you could go, but you can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody who stayed there now can't afford to live there, you know. So that's the reality that's happening. You know, in terms of that happening in our city, we've made sure to implement policies and ordinances to protect the people that are really there. Right. So one of those things was like rent control.
Right.
That took like 2 years of my time being on council of pushing it. Right. I don't even want to take credit for that. But in the essence of voting for it, man, I was always an advocate.
So you're very pro rent control.
Very pro rent control. Because I think to some extent we've seen cases where there's corporations, you know, LLCs or of some sorts that literally abuse the community that lives there. You know, and this is gonna lead on to my own sort of experience now wanting to own land or wanting to own property, and the sort of conflict where now I'm sort of gonna be on this side, right? Because I'm assuming we've all been renters, you know, most of our lives, or we know people that have all been renters their whole life. But, you know, now it's like, oh, I'm gonna make that transition to become a landowner now, and I'm gonna be in charge of having tenants and obtaining my apartments, or whatever the case is. And that's become very difficult for me personally because I've never been on that side.
And that's what I'm kind of getting to is there's two sides. Like you said, we've been renters our whole life. Yeah. Most people we know are renters. When I hear about rent control being implemented in Bell Gardens, I go, thank God for my disabled grandma who's barely making ends meet. You know, if something happens, she's gonna be protected. You know, but then as a real estate agent, the real estate professional, Eric, the talk of rent control in the real estate community is usually negative. Yeah. And I understand the perspective because there's also property owners who are also just regular people that this is how they make their life, you know, collecting rent. And if you have a tenant who is giving you a hard time, you know, and not everybody gives.
And we've seen those cases, you know, we've seen those cases. Yeah.
It's tough for that person, you know, for a property owner that's been contributing to the city, paying his property taxes, keeping the city clean. And
who isn't a corporation, has 3 or 4 units.
Exactly.
And is making, that's just their, you know.
And it's tough because they get mixed in to the
corporation,
to the conversation of these big corporations that own all these units who are mismanaging their properties and not treating their tenants right. You know, so it and then I look at like myself, right? I want to become a property owner. I want to own multiple units. So it's like, what happens to me? I'm a regular person, and if I deal with a tough situation, then rent control is not really helping me out. You know, so that's what I was like coming to on my question is like, where people from the bottom trying to come to the top. These policies and laws are pros and cons depending on the side that you're on. You know what I mean? So however, at the end of the day, for a city like Bell Gardens, I think rent control is good because, you know, most people there are renters. You know, and they need to be protected. And you know,
I think that was, you know, so the way rent control happened, and you know, and I don't know if that's what, you know, the whole podcast is gonna be about, but essentially it was a big portion. You know, it took a long time, and I think, you know, if I look back in my time when I was on city council, as of right now, that's been the most thing that I've been proud of. You know, and I was with rent control. I was with the Unión de Vecinas, essentially, right? This blows my mind because, you know, we have council meetings, right? And this is, you know, and again, in our K through 12, you know, and no hate to MUSD, Montebello Unified, or, you know, our high school or teachers, because my teachers were phenomenal.
Absolutely.
You know, Miss Cowley, Miss Carter, shout out to them. They literally believed in me to get this far.
Cool.
You know,
Mr. Shin, big supporter. Shout out Mr. Shin,
shout
man.
out Mr. Shin.
I remember him from middle school. I didn't have him as a teacher, but he selected me to be in leadership camp.
Oh, so you got to go up to the north and all?
I didn't go, man. I didn't follow through, you know, but he did. I did connect with him, you know what I mean? But I see he supports you, Ariel.
So, you know, like, for example, Mr. Shin, right? I never had him as a teacher. You never had him as a teacher. But the fact that he made an impact on us, like, that's how you know, like, that's real right there.
Right.
You know, that's real Bell Gardens energy. And, you know, the guy doesn't look like us. He's not from our community. You know, he's from Temple City, but he's still out here supporting. He's been teaching in our community for about, like, 22 plus years, I think.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. You know,
for sure.
So going back to the whole rent control topic, right? It took 2 years, but the fact that in our community there hasn't been conversations about organizing, right? Getting community to come out and speak to the city council,
Right.
That's sort of unheard. You see that in Orange County, you see that on the west side, you see that in LA, perhaps, it depends what areas of LA, but our community is not in tune with what's happening in their city, right? They're in tune when, you need to call PD. They're in tune when, on the Facebook forums, and I've been in there too, what's going on. But in terms of like actually going to the city council meeting and telling us, hey, this is what's happening, we need to address this.
Yeah.
Like that's not, what we're getting, unfortunately. I think it's changing though.
And that was one of my questions. It was a later question, but I'll move it up now because we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Somebody who has an issue or a goal as a resident of the city of Bell Gardens that want to be heard.
Yeah.
What do they do? How do they make sure they're heard? And how can the city assure that you've been heard? We're going to do something about this.
I think that there's multiple avenues now, right, compared to as when we were growing up in the city, right? So back then, right, and when I say back then, I mean like maybe perhaps like 2000s, right? So the way it works in our cities, a lot of times, at least prior to maybe 2010s, there hasn't been a lot of political activity in terms of people trying to get into city council, right? So there was multiple elections where people wouldn't run for office, right? And if they did run, it'd probably be just like, let's just say there was 3 seats, maybe at most one other extra person would try to throw their name into the hat.
Yeah.
And a big reason why people decided not to run, well, I mean, it's a variety of reasons, but a big, huge reason or speculation reason was because of money, right? You need money to be able to set up a campaign team. You need money to have flyers, to have, your banners. That all takes money, right?
For sure.
So for the longest, right, it was always difficult to get into city council to actually make that change that you wanted to implement, right? So now what we're starting to see is there's a turnaround in terms of people being active.
Great.
Right now, you can go up on, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it now especially in these communities with the app, the Nextdoor app.
Yeah.
Right. And people know what's up, what's going on.
Yeah.
For us, our communities haven't caught up to the Nextdoor app yet. I hope so they do in the future, but at the same time, it's no different than like going on a Facebook group or chatting away with everybody else on that.
Right.
But in terms of trying to get an issue or putting forward a message, at least I feel comfortable saying all of us on city council, we're all accessible in terms of giving away our number, putting it on social media. We all have Instagrams, you could DM us there.
Yeah.
And we're all pretty active on that. Same thing with Facebook.
You were easy to reach, man. I DM'd you. You responded right away.
And that's what it's about, right? Making sure that, again, like I tell folks, like, and there's this big, like, misconception of, especially our elderly folks, our elderly residents, who think that, oh, you're too busy. I don't want to bother. And for me, it hurts me because I work for you.
Yeah.
You pay me to be in the seat.
That's
right?
that's actually your job.
It's my job, right?
To listen.
To listen, to be there, right? To respond to issues that you have about the city, right? Tell me about a pothole that you need me to fix.
Yeah.
Tell me about, the light that's not working anymore, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the graffiti, so there's been a lot of stuff, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that all of us, are pretty accessible on the city council, whether that's through Instagram or we give our numbers out,
So members, residents of Bell Gardens, if you have an issue, don't just post it on a Facebook group. Give Jorgel a call.
Yeah.
Give Jorgel a call. Give other council members a call, and they'll listen to you. Send them a message on Instagram. Send them an email, a letter, whatever is best for you. And how is a person gonna know? I have a problem with a pothole on my block. I told Jorgel about it. How do they know that something's being done?
So I think for me, the way I approach it, something like as a pothole, I'll get so they'll reach out. Let's just say Eric calls me, hey, Eric, you tell me what's going on. I usually tell you where's the pothole located around, give me a general area. Yeah. I then go ahead and report it to the city manager or whoever's the acting city manager at the moment. I either send an email or just shoot up a text or even just call them on the spot. Yeah. For the most part, they'll respond within maybe an hour, 2 hours at most. I'll get a response in terms of how long it'll take. Then I'll call back. I'll give you a call back, and then I'll tell you, hey, this is sort of the timeline for it to happen. Yeah. Simple as that.
That's it. Jorgel, I'd like to recap that in Spanish. Now, okay. Residentes de la ciudad de Bell Gardens, si usted tiene alguna meta, algún problema, los miembros de la City Council están disponibles con una llamada, un mensaje, una letra para que ustedes les den, platiquen su problema, su meta, y van a estar escuchados. Pero lo único que tienen que hacer ustedes es comunicar. Jorge, ¿les puedes decir a la gente cómo es que ustedes aseguran que los han escuchado? Por ejemplo, un problema de un pothole en la calle. Diles en español, por favor.
Sí, por ejemplo, muchas gracias por darle la oportunidad de poder decirlo en español. Es muy importante porque la mayoría de nuestra comunidad pues habla español, ¿verdad?
Exacto.
Sí, no es el único lenguaje que platican. So, brevemente, en un caso donde, me quieren reportar un pothole o, a light, una luz que ya no está funcionando, por favor, yo siempre, como les digo a los residentes, que me pueden llamar a mí directamente, me pueden mandar texto. Y de nuevo, yo puedo meter el reporte, yo se lo meto al manejador de la ciudad o la directora o el director al momento. Yo les digo más o menos cuánto tiempo va a estar solucionado. Entonces, de allí, ya que tengo esa respuesta, yo mismo me reporto para atrás con el residente o la residenta. Y si no yo, igualmente el director o el manejador de la ciudad le llamaría para atrás a ustedes. Así es como ha funcionado, la mayoría de veces. También quiero decir otra cosa en español.
Claro.
Muchas personas, la mayoría de tercera edad de nuestra comunidad, piensa que nosotros estamos muy ocupados o que no tenemos tiempo para resolver sus inquietudes o no nos quieren llamar o molestar. Por favor, cualquier problema que tengan, si es con los oficiales, si es con nuestro departamento de recreación, si es con los servicios públicos, si es con la administración, si algo no les parece con nosotros, nuestro trabajo, por favor, avísenos. Para eso estamos aquí, para poder solucionar. Queremos escucharlos. Yo claramente quiero escucharles. Yo quiero saber cuáles son sus inquietudes y cuáles son también la solución que tienen para las inquietudes. Porque de eso se trata, de tener esa conversación y mirar cuál es la solución que nosotros podemos llegar.
No tengan pena. Jorgel fue muy accesible cuando le pedí salir en esta entrevista. So, no tengan pena. Mándenle un mensaje y yo les aseguro que les va a responder.
Igual como tenemos tiempo para el Facebook, tenemos tiempo para el Instagram, por favor, también búsquenos.
Sí, no nomás los pongan en el Facebook group. Mándenle mensaje.
It's all part of that, man.
Claro,
todo eso.
Claro. I'm going to move on to my next topic here, brother. So, speaking of that, I posted last night on the Facebook group, Bell Gardens Uncensored.
Yeah.
Shout out Bell Gardens Uncensored.
Shout out Bell Gardens Uncensored.
See a lot going on there.
That group is active.
It is very active, right?
Yeah.
So
there's like missing pets every day, and I'm like, I'm getting frustrated about that. I just want to make it a Bell Gardens missing pets page or something, man, because it's becoming difficult, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I do love to see the people of the community, though, interacting with each other, sharing information. So I got over I think an hour ago, I checked, it was like 66 comments of people asking for what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
There was a lot, so I narrowed it down to the 3 hottest topics.
I didn't even know you posted about it. I haven't been on social media, man, all day.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. No, I have been on social media. I haven't been on Facebook. That's what I'm trying to get, yeah.
Gotcha. So the 3 hottest topics, for sure, were street vendors,
okay,
homelessness, and street parking.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good.
The first one I'd like to talk about is street vendors.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me start off with my opinion of it. I love it, first of all, because I know these are hardworking people that are feeding their family this way.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think people should be working and doing something like that. But if there's no rules, it's chaos.
Yeah.
And I think the priority should be the health and safety of the consumers. And I know, maybe the spots are not always the cleanest. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not being regulated the way they should be. My opinion is, I think street vendors who want to sell whatever they want to sell on the sidewalk should have easy access to and reasonable access to a permit. Mm-hmm. That process should be smooth.
Yeah.
And that way they can do everything legit, But I'm not sure if that's how the process works in Bell Gardens. But a lot of people, it was two-sided in the conversation on Facebook.
It's difficult, man.
Yeah.
It's and I'll jump right in. So, and I've been public about this on my social media. I'm out there supporting street vendors.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's in my city or in another city, man. It takes a lot of courage to just set up your own little booth.
Yeah.
And be like, you know what? I got food and, here it is. Try to buy it, like this is what I'm about. And I love the fact that shout out to everybody on Facebook that does this, where they literally from their own homes start selling every Saturday or Sunday. They start selling their own food that they make. Right,
menudo, pupusas, all that.
You name it, man, and I love that.
It's all the homemade delicious stuff.
I'm telling you, not for the way I see it is not only are we a community made up of immigrants, man, but at the same time we're entrepreneurs. Dude.
Yes,
and that's like you know, it's entrepreneurship is just in our bloods from the get go, man. So when I see. You know, from when I went back, and all of us can talk about this in our room, when I remember back at the high school where there would be, you know, the soccer players a lot of times with that little bag of chips and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I used to love that, bro.
That's, again, it comes back down, man. So again, you know, and in part, you know, like I tell folks, especially with this whole street vending, man, not only does it take courage to put yourself out there, because what if people say, I don't like this. I don't want your food. I tried it one time and it just wasn't good. Like,
rejection is tough.
That's tough, you know? So, you know, I have, you know, tias and tios that make cook and stuff. And if I don't even want to say it's bad or anything because I know how it's going to hurt them, you know? So I give our community props for coming out and doing that. You know, there was a story that was made, especially in our city about street vending, man. You know, businesses came out, they united, and they came out against the street vendors. You know, in part, I was torn because, you know, for the longest, you know, I didn't have to go to East LA. I didn't have to go to East Rancho Dominguez to get tacos or to get any of that, right?
You mean a negative statement from the city about street vendors?
Not the city. It was a couple businesses.
A couple businesses.
Okay. Couple businesses that came out, man, and they had Univision out there and everything. Okay. You know, and unfortunately, like I told them, you know, and I made it public on the city council meeting, man. It hurts because, you know, going back to what I was talking about, accessibility.
Yeah.
Having that conversation with us as a city, you know.
Yes.
All of a sudden, at least expected, I see cameras, I see this on TV, and I'm caught off guard because we've been accessible.
Yeah.
You know, no business came to me and said, hey, you know what? Like, this is impacting my business. There's got to be some sort of restrictions put on them. You know, unfortunately, that didn't happen. So there wasn't communication.
Right.
Look, I think for a lot of times for businesses to say, you know, to come at me or to, you know, people to paint me as someone who's not supporting the street vendors or not supporting the businesses. I support businesses. I support street vendors as well. I'm even comfortable saying I've put more on my story support local business than I put support street vendors. And this is strictly businesses in Bell Gardens, whether it was El Correlense, Rosillos, El Solimar, TNA Taco, even our own casino. They have the restaurant there.
Yeah.
You know, ¿cuál otro?
I love the taco spot on Clara and Jaboneria.
Clara and Jaboneria.
I've been going there for years, man. That's my spot.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, again, you know, that's the spot. You know,
see, when I think of that,
that's El Jalisciense right there.
Jalisciense,
right next to Sarah's Mini Market.
Yep, I love that spot. You go, you get your Coca-Cola, you get your burrito de asada.
It's there, man.
You go hang out. See, like when I think about El Jalisciense, shout out them.
Shout out,
right?
Jalisciense.
And I know there's a family that sets up on Jaboneria in Live Oak by the BGI.
By the BGI, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen them, and I don't think
Tacos Los Tóxicos.
Tacos Los Tóxicos. I've heard people say great things, right?
Yeah.
You know, these are both people, hardworking people, who are feeding the community, you know. But one of them may feel that, you know, they're paying for a location.
Yep.
They're paying taxes and fees and business licenses. The other one's not.
Insurance.
All of that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Employing people. You know what I mean? They may feel, wow, these people down the street are probably selling as many tacos as I am.
If not more.
And I'm making the additional effort to make sure I'm doing it legit. You know, it's tough.
Look, I think, you know, and this is what I've learned, you know, coming down and like really analyzing this street vending issue of what drives people to go out there and start doing that, right?
Yeah.
You know, essentially hustling, right? Trying to make a buck, right? In the legit way, you know, to some extent, right? And you know, on the books, you know, on paper, it's illegal, you know, whatever the case is. But I feel comfortable saying, like, you know, regardless if it's legal or not, I'm out there and I'm buying from them, you know. And I'll tell you, some of the street vending food that I've had has been the best food ever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's delicious and I love it, you know. Probably, I feel comfortable saying Tacos El Cabezón right there in BG, man. They are.
Which one's that one?
Tacos El Cabezón. So it got to the point where I think Tacos El Cabezón had 2 locations in BG.
Two street vending
locations.
Okay.
Now I think he only has 1. But it was down, what was that? Shoal Street and Eastern. Shoal Street and Eastern. And, you know, he managed to set up his shop right there. And, you know, and he was one of those street vendors where, you know, he power washed his station. Yeah. You know, he was looking out for his spot. Clean. You know, I never did I go and, you know, not to say hate to any other street vendor, but, again, like in terms of other street vendors, I never got complaints. Nobody called me. Nobody texted me saying, nobody sent me pictures saying, hey, this street vendor's living this trash or anything,
Yeah.
And again, I feel comfortable saying that majority of Bell Gardens support street vendors.
Yeah.
We support the hustle. We support the entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
right? Taking it back to Tacos El Jalisciense compared to the little taco stand, right? I think a lot of times what it comes down to is where the workers are in terms of perhaps status here, right? Of their own socioeconomic status and how or why do they got to do that?
Yeah.
The story I heard of Tacos Los Tóxicos, when I got to hear their story, one of the ladies, so I think they're all Central American, and they came to this country recently, and the way they were working at a food truck, and they said, you know what? At the end, I figured I already learned all the recipes. I could do this my own, and I risked it, and I took the shot, and now I'm street vending.
Yeah.
It had been recent, about a year and a half when they got here. So, in terms of where they are in their I guess level here in the U.S., they're not at the level where they could afford a restaurant and all that, right?
Right.
Not just that, much less perhaps even be employed by a restaurant, right? And there's a lot of people, especially now that what I do on my day job as an organizer. I know people who work in McDonald's, who work at all these, fast food places, who are working under the table. Who are working as, with different social securities.
Yeah, they have to.
They have to make a living, right?
Yeah.
Again, to support their kids, and that's how it is.
So Jorgel, if there's a street vendor out there who wants to go into the hustle, they want to do everything.
Depends what kind of street vending, though.
Okay,
right?
Food is the most popular, right?
Food, right? So I mean, we've seen the flower vendors, right? That's
flower vendors, right?
That's
true.
legal in the city. Flower vendors are legal. There was even, I don't know if this is like street vending, but there was a juggler.
Yeah, I saw them on Eastern and
they're not
Florence?
selling anything, right? I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say. I'm not by
I
no means.
thought it was cool, man. You get off the freeway.
It's entertainment.
Good juggler.
It's dangerous though.
It is.
It's dangerous
You're right.
though. And I've seen this all the time, right? So flower vending, the fruit vendors, right? The fruta, we those are legal in our city. So the fruta and the flowers, those are legal. They have permits.
The guy that sells the lights on the corner.
The lights I've seen.
Florence.
I think I've seen that every once in a while. I see him, Florence. But I've seen those, and those are legal. Yeah. At least the ones that I'm talking about is the flower and the fruit. They have permits from the city.
Okay.
In terms of the taco stands, that's where it gets difficult and complicated because
food.
Yeah, because there was a state law that passed. I think it was called SB. I don't remember, but Senator Lina Gonzalez, our own very own state senator in California, she proposed it. She was with the Street Vendors Coalition.
Yeah.
It was backed by them. And it essentially changed the retail food code to allow street vendors like taco people to be able to sell.
Right, even from their own home, right? That's what I remember.
I don't know if it's from their own home, but
Okay.
from what I do know is it changed the retail. Essentially, so the way it works is that there was barriers to get them legalized and to get them permitted and licenses because of their equipment.
Right.
Now we broke that barrier, and now we managed to switch the code around to make it legal for for them to allow street vending, right?
Okay.
The thing is that now that it's been a law, it became official this year. It has now become difficult for the LA County LA County Public Health to implement it now.
Okay.
Right? To determine which one is going to be okay and which cart is going to be a legal cart and which cart is going to be an illegal cart.
Okay.
That's where we're coming at now. So now it doesn't necessarily fall back on the law. It just comes back on the process to implement it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So that's the reality.
So
that's where we're
Jorgel,
at.
to narrow this down to practical advice for somebody. I need to feed my family. I want to sell tacos.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to do this the clean, the legit way possible in the city of Bell Gardens. What process do I take?
I think for folks that are interested in street vending, whether it's from their home, whether it's from the street, right on the street. I think obviously the first question is what type of street vending? What are you trying to sell?
Tacos.
Right? Tacos, for example. I think currently in our city we do not allow taco vendors.
Okay.
Because they're not legalized at the county level.
Okay.
As soon as the county gets their stuff together in terms of implementing an easier way, a faster way to get the county health permit.
Yeah.
By then it'll mean that our city will be okay with that.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
it again, like that's the new thing that we're running into. I've seen, and I'm not gonna say anybody else's name, but I know other cities that have decided to potentially move away from enforcing the health permit and just get a license from the city itself.
I see.
Now, LA County Health is not gonna come down to Bell Gardens. It's not gonna come down to any of our cities, any city, without the police. The last thing I want is for the police to be seen in that way of taking away food from my community.
Right.
Right. I don't think my community, when I say community, I don't mean not just myself. I don't think Bell Gardens residents want to see our police or any police really in our city taking away food from a street vendor who's just trying to make a living.
Right.
Whether it's throwing it on the ground, throwing it, whatever the case is, confiscating it, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I personally will not allow that. I will do everything possible to go ahead and advocate for the street vendor in that case. And I always stand with them.
But at this point, legitimately,
They're-
you just
yeah.
got to be willing to take the risk.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
It's a risk.
Gotcha. So can we recap that in Spanish? So, si yo soy un residente en la ciudad de Bell Gardens y yo quiero empezar a vender tacos para pagar mi renta y mis biles para mis hijos, ¿cuál es el proceso que yo tengo que tomar para hacer cosas la manera legal y directa? ¿Hay alguna manera, Jorgel?
So ahorita en este momento, legalmente no hay una forma de que la ciudad de Bell Gardens pueda dar el permiso, la licencia para poder vender tacos en este ejemplo,
Okay.
legalmente. Eso no significa que ustedes no pueden vender, ¿verdad? So, por ejemplo, todavía si vamos a la ciudad de Bell Gardens, hay muchos taqueros por la área,
Ajá.
pero en un momento, en cualquier momento, le pueden llamar a la policía y en este caso los van a decir que no pueden estar en esa área. Eso no significa que los vendedores que venden fruta, que venden flores, ellos están legales,
Ok.
si tienen el permiso.
Pues depende del negocio, ¿da?
Depende del negocio. Igualmente nosotros como ciudad queremos permitir yo déjame decirlo mejor yo, en mi opinión, yo como concejal, como residente, me gustaría que los taqueros vendieran en esta ciudad, pero por la razón que no pueden obtener el permiso del condado, no se puede dar el permiso de la ciudad.
Ok.
So esto no necesariamente parte. Y yo me siento confiable, que la mayoría de nuestra comunidad, residentes de Bell Gardens, apoyan a los vendedores ambulantes que son taqueros, que son, que están vendiendo la comida,
Ajá.
¿verdad? Yo creo, y muchos salen a apoyar, and I've seen it myself. Yo los miro en la red social que ponen,
Sí.
los tacos, y pues yo entiendo que nuestra comunidad apoya eso.
Ajá. Además, al momento, esto tiene que tomar el riesgo.
Tiene que tomar, you have to take the risk.
Yeah.
You have to take the risk. Yo personalmente no voy a estar, I'm not going to be the one to call, anybody to say that they shouldn't be here. Yo personalmente no voy a ser el que va a llamar y va a decir, no quiero que estén aquí, porque yo
Ajá.
apoyo a los vendedores ambulantes. So again, se viene para atrás el riesgo, y de nuevo, si llega el momento donde el permiso del condado esté disponible, yo aquí voy a estar para apoyarlos.
Gotcha. Gracias, Jorgel.
Yeah. So, en este mommomento no significa que los negocios no los apoyo. Obviamente yo apoyo
Claro.
todos los negocios, el
Sí.
Solimar, Colense, Básico Casino, el Zarape.
Michoacana.
Todos, las Michoacanas, man, that's like every corner almost.
Yeah.
Not in our city. In our city it's funny because en la Michoacana tenemos dos, una en cada una, so
Ajá.
es interesante ahí cómo funcionó, pero, de nuevo, I feel comfortable saying that what our city did when we allowed street vending, cuando nuestra comunidad pasó la ordenanza de poder dejar vendedores ambulantes, nosotros, we want to give people options.
Yeah.
Nosotros queremos darle a la comunidad opciones de comer. We
Claro.
want to give people options to go and eat whatever they want to go
Claro.
eat. Si un residente de la ciudad quiere ir a comprar tacos, puede ir a comprar tacos. Si no quiere
Ajá.
comprar tacos, que no compre tacos. Si quiere comer mariscos, I have yet to see that. No he mirado a una persona que esté vendiendo mariscos in the street.
Un amigo, somebody we went to high school with, Rudy.
Oh,
You
yeah,
remember Rudy?
I remember Rudy.
Rudy. Shout out Rudy. Shout out, what are the name? Miches, Los Compas, something like that. Shout out them, bro. Rudy and David. They've been doing their thing on the mariscos.
In BG, though?
In BG.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I think they just do it once in a while.
Once in a while. Okay.
Yeah. But that's the only one I've seen mariscos.
On Sundays, okay.
Yeah, I got to try it out, man.
So that's new. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
have, but in terms of on the corner, I've never seen that. So, por
Right.
ejemplo,
Right.
para atrás a la conversación sobre los vendedores ambulantes para los negocios, lo que nosotros queríamos hacer como concilio es darle a la comunidad las opciones de poder ir a comer tacos, en este caso, fruta, lo que sea, o querer ir a comer, tacos from a restaurant.
Yeah.
We want to give people options. Es lo que se
Right.
trata. Queremos dar las opciones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Qué bueno. Es difícil poder estar neutral porque las leyes en veces no ayudan a la gente que están tratando de hacer algo bueno que tal vez no lo pueden hacer con permisos completos y todo, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Pero the next topic, bro, that was really hot in the because these are the Bell Gardens Facebook Uncensored.
Homelessness, right?
These are people in the community.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
really want to answer their questions.
Yeah.
The next one was homelessness.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very heavy topic, and and we can go on for a long time.
It's tough.
Right? Of course, I think we have to take it back to take it back to practical answers human rights, right? Yeah. We're all human. It's raining outside right now.
Housing is a human right.
I feel horrible for the people out there that are dealing with rain right now. You know, it's been a lot of increase, is what the talk is. Is there anything that can be done to help these people?
Man, I mean, I think first off, we need a right. So 2020, this is something I ran on, right? This is what I said. This was like number one, right off the shelf. Like, this is the thing I want to go ahead and grasp on.
Yeah.
And for me personally, and still to this day, it doesn't make sense. And we like to take pride in California saying that we're possibly going to be the 4th largest economy in the world, but yet we still got people sleeping in the corners.
Yeah.
We got people sleeping at the railroad. We got people sleeping at the by the train tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, train tracks, the riverbed, and the freeway. It doesn't comprehend how much we can boast and say we have all this money.
Yeah.
But yet we still got people sleeping on the streets.
Yeah.
I think there's a variety of reasons for why people end up on the street, whether that's mental health, addiction, drugs, you name it, all those three, or perhaps just the fact that it's unaffordable.
Yeah.
Right? I can't tell you enough how many people I've met who don't look homeless, right?
Yeah.
Some of my own fast food workers that work full-time gigs and yet they're still homeless.
Right.
They live in their car.
Right?
Yeah. I think that there's misconception about this idea of when we think of a person who's homeless. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we like to paint the picture of a person who's homeless as someone who's on drugs, someone who has mental health issues, when in reality, it's probably just a community college student trying to get by, right? And they're sleeping in their car outside of community college.
Yeah.
Right? That's the reality.
Yeah.
So, I believe that housing is a human right. Mm-hmm. I don't think that in this country, right, where it's the richest country in the world, yet we can't house people.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
What do you say to somebody? Because I feel like I've been put in a tough position because,
you're a real estate agent.
I'm a real estate agent.
You know about that.
Yeah. So when I see, like, for example, I've seen videos of homeless people in East LA setting up an entire corner, and they
taking over the
corner, dude. I seen one where they did like a 2-story kind of setup. Yeah. I saw a really nice one, man. They had a jacuzzi in there, and I'm like, okay, great. These people are figuring it out. I get it.
I saw a meme of it was like what you can get in Texas versus what you can get in California, and like that's unfortunately like that's
right. But think about this, man. Like I remember seeing something about that, and it was like in East LA, I think, and
or Skid Row. That's another.
It's somebody who paid and bought their property, worked hard, saved a down payment, pays their property taxes, owns their property, and they see a gentleman or a lady setting up this corner, and they're using the restroom there, and they can't clean it up.
Yeah.
Their kids are playing outside, outside in their yard.
No, but outside because they're already outside, right? Because they're not living in a home.
Right.
Outside.
Yeah.
In that case.
Yeah. Exactly. But like, for example, like I bought a property here in this corner.
Yeah.
And somebody's setting up on the corner. And I want my kids to play outside comfortably, right? I work really hard for this. But now I don't feel safe because, I don't know who that person is or what they're doing. What do you say to that person who's saying, get this person off this corner because, I don't want to be looking at this? What do you say to that property owner?
I think the reality is that the system has failed us. Right, the state of California in terms of housing homelessness has failed us. I think in part what I've done to try to push the conversation of homelessness, it's always been difficult.
Yeah,
because of bureaucracy, the system. If it was up to me, I think that there should be a system or there should be a phone number where I can call someone, just like how we have the suicide prevention line, just how we have the 911 line, where I can call someone and say, hey, there's this person in front of my corner. They need help.
Yeah.
I truly believe that people who are sleeping on the corner, who's sleeping on the street, they're not doing that by choice.
Right.
Right. I think they're really, if they are, it's perhaps because they're not all there.
You're right. Nobody wants to do
Nobody grew up saying, I want to sleep in the corner or I want to live outside.
Right.
Right. I think they really need help and they need assistance.
Yeah.
And I think in part, that's where we failed. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to say necessarily me in part, I fell because I compared to people that have been a part of trying to fix this issue, who have been in government and politics, who have been in serving for a long time. I think for me, again, I've been trying to get a grasp on this issue. I think in part of Bell Gardens, where our homeless population is, if we look at it, it's probably going to be in some shopping centers. I think the shopping center that perhaps has a big amount of homeless folks. When I say big, I don't mean like 15, 20, probably 2 or 3. Has been that where the lavanderia, that the laundromat is down. What street is this? It's Perry and Florence. Perry and Florence, right in front of Super A Foods.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen people there. I've seen a couple folks right next to Primo Burger, going towards Southgate.
Yeah.
I've seen people on the riverbed. I've actually started seeing fires being lit in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
In the right there in the rail yard, in the railroad.
Can you blame them? It's cold.
And it's cold, right? It's raining. We just had the biggest storm. I really want to do a sort of system or some sort of phone number in place where I can go ahead and reach out to someone who's going to be on the other line ready to come and out and help.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I think in this conversation of homelessness, we've put a lot of pressure and a lot of duties on police.
Yeah.
Right. And this is sort of the new reality that I face, because if you call for help in after hours, the police is going to show up. They're the only city agency that's working 24 hours on the clock.
Right.
Holidays, you name it, they're always on the clock.
Yeah.
They always got to respond to emergencies. So that's the reality, man.
Yeah, I think, you're right. It's the system that has failed us, because when you think about it, man, like there should be, if there was a whole block in Bell Gardens where they had a bunch of buildings and a bunch of little apartments, and they said, if you're homeless and you need help, we got a spot for you here for you to be safe and dry, right? If that was available, I don't think people would it help a lot of people, but like you said, nobody really actually wants to be there. You know what I mean? It'd be like a temporary help for somebody, get them on their feet and move along and do better.
Not just that, right? I think you got to talk about, again, and I like to talk about the system, and this sort of, and again, I believe in systemic racism, systemic, injustices that communities, especially our community of color, have gone through, right? Especially in the past.
Yeah.
Where, you talk about real estate, where there would literally be on the books where this community would only be for black people and this community would only be for white people, right? There was literally zones, right? We talk about Bruce's Beach right here in Manhattan Beach. Right? That was an exclusive black beach for black residents. But now finally, we went back to the rightful people, the descendants of the owners.
Yes.
We talk about that. So that was a reality. And I don't want to say to this day it exists like that. But in part, there's invisible barriers for us to continue to move up.
Yeah.
A perfect example is the bank. You walk into the bank and you ask for a loan, you ask for a credit card or whatever the case is, right from the get-go. And there's been studies done, where depending on how you look, the way you dress, they'll assume a certain amount of credit. It happens all the time with dealers where you try to go get a car. Yeah. Right. And unfortunately, that's the seriousness. But again, it's about when they actually pull you up, you can prove that wrong. Right. So I think, I don't say I fit in the role of a council member, right? When we think of a politician or someone who's like in government, usually think, and for the most part, especially in this country, you think of some old white man. Yeah. And by no means do I fit that caliber, whether that's the way I talk, the way I speak, the way I dress, the way I express myself, I don't belong in that.
Right. I hear you, man. Well, it's conversations like these that are, I think, going to move things forward. Like you said, it's about addressing the issue, new faces like you, bringing in the topic, and little by little, years over years. Because what we're trying to break is things that have been built over generations. These are things that have been implemented us over a long periods of time.
And again, it begins by having people at the table that look like us, that have gone through our experience. So. Before this conversation, this podcast, I didn't know really people from BG that did podcasts. Obviously Pique with the Real Elite Friends that I remember I heard that and I did that, but I don't know anybody else. Yeah. Hopefully this keeps the momentum going. Yeah. Hopefully this conversation, podcasts like this inspire students now that, oh, damn, I didn't know I could do that too. Yeah.
It's possible, guys. Do it.
Again, right?
Look at us. Look at Jorgel. He's city council member 2015, class of 2015, like myself. I'm
shout out to Gmoe too.
Shout out Gmoe behind the camera. I couldn't do this podcast without him. This is an early podcast. We just started. This is our 4th episode. Yep. But I've come from where you come from, bro. We come from the same place. Yep. but we, like I said earlier, we didn't let our where we come from determine our destination.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know. So any young person out there, quite literally, I'm speaking to you. Go become city council like Jorgel and make a difference and tell your story. Go sell real estate and help others own property that look like you and come from where you come from. You know, so that way we can all just even it out. You know what I mean? Because we're all Americans, bro. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. We all have the goal to be happy, be free. Yeah. You know, and I think we all have that opportunity. I just think sometimes we need to remind people of that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Real quick, I do want to add something else, and I know we covered about homelessness, and that's about the unaffordability, man.
Yeah.
That's the other component, right? We talk about, and I know, you know, for the folks that are on the uncensored page, you know, because and I want to be in that conversation, and I want to go back and forth, and I want to type away, you know, but it gets difficult on a comment section. You know,
yeah.
I'm willing to go ahead and do some sort of, and they do it during the election time. They do some sort of forum every year, every election season, where they actually ask questions to the candidates. But, you know, for the longest, like, I want to reach out to the people who run the page. Let's set up a conversation where we can, you know, we could have these Q&As.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be bi-weekly where we could actually see what's going on in the city, man.
Yeah.
You know, I think for the longest, I want to see the city council chamber, right? This place where we literally make laws for Bell Gardens, right? When we talk about homelessness, like, we can literally implement programs. We can implement, you know, staff, right, to go ahead and assist police department to assist in this homeless issue, right? But we need to hear from the people, you know,
right?
Street vending. It wasn't until businesses, right, started. They didn't even. I won't even say they won't even came into. They did come to the council chamber after the fact, but beforehand, nobody submitted a comment, right? We want them to come to us. We want to hear from y'all. And again, for me, it's like I try to be as accessible as possible. Shoot me a text, give me a call, you know, shoot me a DM, you name it. But again, trying to go back to the homelessness, and I know I've been bouncing back and forth, my bad on that. And we talked about mental health. We talked about addiction.
Yeah.
Affordability, right? That's the other component. I can't tell you enough how many times I've seen for rent or who people in Bell Gardens Uncensored who are looking for an apartment to live, man. A room this size of this garage, right? For this, man, I would hope that it's under 1,700, 1,600.
Yeah, you'd hope.
Right? You know, and this is like a studio kind of vibe, right? It's become so difficult to find. You know, that's a reason why I still live with my parents. I live with my parents because I can't afford to live on my own. Yeah. And I got a full-time job. You know, I'm working on city council. You know, and it's still difficult for me to own, to rent by myself. So it's becomes completely unaffordable, right? You can't live in California. You can't live in SoCal, in LA, in Bell Gardens, making $15 an hour.
Nope.
You can't live in Bell Gardens making even $20 an hour.
Not on your own. You gotta have 3-4 people doing that in one household.
And if you don't do that, you gotta work 2-3 jobs.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. That's a big reason why I do what I do, right? That's today why I was at that USC shuttle drivers march at USC. Shout out USC. Shout out USC shuttle drivers. I'll say that. You know, that's a reason because they were making $20 an hour, man. How expensive is it to live, not only in LA, but to live in that area of USC? Yeah. You know, and these people are people that are bus drivers, shuttling some of the richest kids in the world. Yeah. At USC back and forth, man. Yeah. I'm never gonna forget. I saw I think it's a Cognisig. I think it's a car. It's like a Bugatti Cognisig right there in USC Marshall, bro. Yeah. Blew my mind. It was like $4 million. I don't know how much it was, but it was in the millions of dollars, man. A $5 million car right there parked at the campus. Yeah. Yet we got bus drivers, right, making $20 an hour trying to get by, right? So today when they asked, right, and that's why I'm wearing the shirt 721, when they asked for support from the union, and I'm not with 721, I'm with the 5 for 15, which is fast food workers. Okay. You know, we said we're gonna support. We're gonna come out and we support it, and you know, we want to make sure that they get the opportunity to unionize. Yeah. Because
you know what, man, it's tough because I believe we all have the same opportunity to achieve success. You know, I chose real estate as that avenue, and it's worked out for me. But you know, there's other like we were talking earlier with Gmoe here about how teachers only get paid a few grand a month. And that's tough because these are people who are passionate about helping the youth, but they're not being compensated correctly, so they have to go ahead another job. You know what I mean? And I know we've been on for a while, and I want to start kind of getting to wrapping up. But
I'm loving this, man. We could go on and on and
let's
on.
keep going.
I love it, man.
Let's keep going. So because it's a real estate agent like myself making a commission, right? Versus a teacher. I'll spend maybe 2-3 months on a deal, and I make a commission, and it was worth it. Versus a teacher who may have spent 2-3 months working with students, staying late, grading papers, investing their own money back into their classroom, and not being compensated the same way. See, that's the thing. It's capitalism, right? I mean, part of me feels like I like that that's available, because that teacher can also go sell real estate if they want, but it's tough, man. It's tough. And what's the one thing I'm learning, bro, as I'm growing older is I've always tried to be neutral about things, but you really got to take a stand on one side and empower it,
I'll say this about, when you I like that I keyed on that, which is, regardless, something about opportunity you said, we're all granted the same opportunity.
Yeah.
And I like to believe that too. I think we're all granted the same opportunity. We're all American citizens. And I said this in the other podcast with the Really Friends with Vika and Mr. Shin, right? Who's a teacher, and I feel he's gone above and beyond in terms of
he has,
serving the students and whatnot. So there was this picture, right? And I said it in that thing, and we're all in this line, but yet we all started different. There's like a wall, and the little kid's trying to like see over the wall, and we all begin in different levels to see over that wall, right?
Yeah.
So if we're from Bell Gardens, right, and we have the schools that we're accessible to, our schools are not at the caliber of West Side schools, right?
Okay.
In terms of after school programs, we're not at that level. In terms of the arts, we're not at that level, right? I'm pretty sure now that's conversation shifting, but in terms of accessibility to opportunities like that, going to college field trips, right? I can't remember the time I went to a field trip when I was in high school, right?
Very
now
few.
that's been our experience growing up in BG, right? They say with the zip code that you grew up in, it'll tell me all about you. So I like to believe that we need to shift that, we need to change that. It's been difficult for me to I don't want to say that I'm over that wall, but continually, as I'm going to hopefully look over that wall, I'm bringing everybody with me.
Yeah.
My people, my community, the residents. I said yesterday in a city council meeting, I said it was for the girls basketball team and the girls soccer team and the boys soccer team. And we're talking about funding for the programs, right?
Okay.
So we're always for boys soccer. We're always for the boys sports, right? But we don't look out for the girls sports. And it's simple. Look at the national scale. Look at the WNBA and you look at the NBA.
Yeah.
How much coverage each of them gets on ESPN.
Yeah.
To ESPN, whatever. how much coverage do they get? It's not the same.
Yeah.
Right. I said that not only are girls sports sometimes, not only are they performing at the caliber of men's sports, but sometimes even more.
Right.
Look at our women's national soccer team.
Yeah.
Man.
Because it all compounds, right? You'd say someone may argue, it's not getting shown as much because it's not as entertaining, right? But it's not as entertaining because it's not getting shown as much. What comes first, the chicken or the egg conversation, right?
Again, I think the question now then is who's making the decisions to see what's going to be shown and what not shown.
Right.
So
and how are they making those decisions?
And how are they making those decisions? So when we talk about bringing an after school program, right? I won't say after school. Yeah, after school program. When we talk about housing, right? When we talk about first dibs, the vaccines are a perfect example, man. When we were doing this rollout of the vaccines, right? And I wasn't on council. Shout out to all the council members before me. But even now to the current council, the hard work that they did to make sure that our communities got access to vaccines, man.
Yeah.
That was huge because, we had to make sure that our communities weren't left behind, right?
Yeah.
But yet our communities were the most impacted when it came down to COVID.
Right.
So that's a simple one. But again, who's making the decisions, right? So when I'm in my role as a council member, when I have the opportunity to, advocate for my people, any opportunity really, again, when I'm meeting with my congressman, when I'm meeting with my senator, when I'm meeting with my assemblyman person, I want them to come to my city.
Yeah.
I want them to walk the streets that I walk.
Yeah.
Drive the streets that I drive and see what I'm about.
Right.
That's the reality.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it all comes down to what we've already said multiple times, is the communication, right? Because I I've done a lot of business here in the South Bay, Redondo Beach, right? A little bit more affluent people. And one thing that my mentor told me, Dean Thomas, shout out to Dean Thomas, he told me, write to your congressman, communicate to them your situation, who you are, and show them that you're a real person dealing with these struggles. Because otherwise, how are they going to know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the key is whether you're trying to commute an issue or a goal to your city, to your state, you got to communicate it.
Yeah.
So, and make sure your voice is heard,
Yeah.
So otherwise there's, don't go complain about it on Facebook. Tell the proper people,
Like sometimes I think, and I'll say myself and then also my colleagues at times, we get frustrated, man, because the same amount of time and energy it took to post it, you could have just texted us or called us,
right?
Man, and
right.
There's only so much we could do to try. It's again, like I want them to come to the council meeting.
Yeah.
I want them to tell us what problems they got, but
Yeah.
the only next level I can think of is us to go door knocking and tell them, hey, tell me your problems,
Right.
But again, we have 43,000 people that live in our city, not including people that are living in ADUs, living in garages and whatnot.
This is registered people that you guys know of.
Right. Yeah. So like, when the census is done, right? How many people didn't come out to the census because of the fear of their documented status, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to give their information to the government. Why do they need to know my name and all that?
Right.
So, that's for right now on the record, it says 42,000, 43,000, give or take. In reality, I think it's probably 50,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm glad we've had these conversations, man. Let me touch up on the last topic that the people of Bell Gardens Uncensored wanted to hear about, which was street parking.
Yeah. Man.
I mean, it's
horrible, man.
It's horrible. It's gotten worse over the years. I remember I used to live on Jaboneria in Lubeck, and it was always chill. I was always, and now you never find parking in that corner.
Man.
So
it's tough.
The thing about it is, like, say you guys figure out a way. Say out of these 40 to 50,000 people, 10,000 of them are young adults, and they move out of the city, right? There's still going to be a whole line of other people right behind them filling up those parking spots. Yeah. So really my question on that topic is, what can be done, if anything?
Man, this conversation of street parking, and I will say, people do call me about street parking. They've gone to the point where they're calling me about their cars getting towed, man.
Right.
That's the last thing I want. I don't want people to start getting their cars towed, because then it puts another barrier to try to get by, man, because now you got to worry about the fees that you got to pay to police, and then you got to worry about the fees that you got to pay to the tow company.
Yeah.
I think it's gone to the point where, obviously let's look at the moment right now we're doing. I know a lot of people, and it's weird now because, for the young professionals, there's opportunities for them to work from home, right? Which has led them to just stay home and work from home essentially, right?
Yeah.
We're coming out of this pandemic. A lot of folks probably they're trying to figure out what's the next step.
Yeah.
It was almost like a fresh start for them in a way, from getting away from the 9 to 5 and try to figure something out. I know a lot of people are doing the stroll street, the whole, side vending from their home.
Yeah.
Which has led to them not move their cars and whatnot.
Gotcha.
I think that there's been conversations about doing some sort of parking structure. There's been conversations about allowing churches to use that as parking lot, because the churches are within the neighborhoods.
The big one on Ira and Fry, right? The big one there. Yeah,
right.
where Touch Point, where we did Food Drive Festival. That's a huge lot.
Yeah, that's a huge lot. Yeah. So that one, there's another one down, I think it's El Celinda and Loveland. There's another. It was like this. It's like that one's like really in the center of the neighborhood.
I know which one.
San Gertrudis down. Garfield. That's another big one.
Yeah.
They're all they're really within the
What
neighborhood.
trips me out, man, is just like, say these locations did open up their parking lots, right?
Yeah.
For certain hours.
Yeah.
Maybe they charge a fee, whatever, right? Yeah. Whatever. Those are gonna fill up so quick.
Yeah, man.
And the issue will continue to be there.
I think the problem with the parking, dude, is that, and I don't want to say it's even, I mean, obviously overpopulation.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I was going to say. We're overpopulated. And I mean, what are we,
Too many. And again, right, don't get me wrong, the last thing I want to worry about when I get home from work, if I don't have a parking at home, is like street parking at my street.
Parking 2 blocks away.
2 blocks away, or having to park, at the border of the city, or having to park in another city.
Yeah.
There's been conversations about implementing an overnight parking permit, right? Like other cities, I think Bell does that, or they don't allow parking at night.
Which then that's insane, bro. I used to live there. And it's like, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Yeah. So a lot of people supposedly, and this is what, we had a study done and whatnot, that this is prior to me on council, but essentially there were people that were coming from other neighborhoods to park in our city.
Yeah.
Right. I think the study came out to be like only one street was being impacted by that. It wasn't a big thing. But still, though, I do believe that, there's a car here or there that's probably from another city.
Yeah.
I've been on both sides on the conversation in terms of street parking, man. Obviously, at my house, I have parking.
Is this something that the city is trying to do something about? Can they even do something about it?
Well, I think if there was a solution, I think all of us, in terms of when I say cities, I don't just mean Bell Gardens. I think Bell, because again, we all have this issue, right? You go to Southgate, no parking. You go to Cudahy, no parking.
Right.
You go to Bell, no parking. Huntington Park, man.
Everywhere in
everywhere,
LA, bro.
Right?
Really?
That's the reality, right?
Yeah.
I like to say, Orange County don't got that problem, but you go to Orange, you go to Santa Ana, you go to like those communities, and it's like, they got that problem too. And again, it's different communities. Also, another thing, our Latino community, we're very, we like to look after one another in terms of our elders, right?
Yeah.
Potentially, some moves back in to take care of the grandma, the grandpa, whatever the case is, because the parents currently work. At that point, that's another car moving in.
Yeah.
And that's again, just like the Asian community, we like to look after our elders in that case.
Right.
I think ultimately solve this issue, man. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one in terms of street parking. We implemented some sort of solution. I won't even say solution because I don't think any of the streets in our city have it, but essentially some sort of parking district or parking permit that would allow a certain street, like a block, right? So for example, I'll use the blocks from the high school, right? So you got the high school and you got Colmar and then you got Agra.
Yeah.
Colmar and then you got Jaboneria, right? And then you got that little stretch of Agra. So the way it would work is essentially, and it has to work only with like R1, R2 kind of zones, right? Single family homes. It can't work with apartments.
Yeah.
Essentially, it'll be a parking permit. I don't know exactly the details, but it would be a certain amount too, I think, per like household or something, to sort of try to prevent the influx of people parking on that street, right? So only people from that street can park in that street, right? And it would be a permit that would be allowed for your address in that street.
Okay.
So another street like Darwell or Watcher or Lanto, they wouldn't be able to park there.
Okay.
So it's been a mixed conversation. People have tried to do that in our city, but it has to be a certain zone. So for example, we had an issue on Clara between Geffar and Ira of a body shop that was putting a ton of cars everywhere. And already our city cracked down on that because you can't, if you're a business, right? And if you're a body shop, right? You take your car to the body shop.
I think I know the body shop you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. So like, for example, you take your car to the body shop. What if something happens to your car while it's on the street?
Yeah.
Who are you going to charge? What is the body shop going to do in that case, right?
Right.
In this case, right? If it gets hit or something, right? Well, if it's a body shop, they could just fix it, right? But if it's another incident or the car's totaled, what do you do at that case, right? Who's going to pay for that? Is it going to be the body shop? Is it going to be the person who, that you can't just do that, right?
Yeah.
So a resident tried to do that parking permit, but unfortunately because of the zone, because it's mixed use, they weren't able to. It's homes and also commercial. You can't industrial. You can't have parking permit.
A good solution is something you said earlier: underutilized real estate. The high school, right? What if at nighttime they opened up that parking lot? That could be. I don't know what goes into that.
I guess the thing is that when it comes to churches and like schools and all that, it becomes a liability issue.
Right.
Someone goes in and breaks my car, they steal my computer, whatever, for my car.
Who's liable?
Who's liable, right? So is it going to be the property owner of that lot? Or in the case of a church, right? Is it going to be that church that's going to be liable? Is it going to be the city, because this is a city program in this case, because they created this thing? Or is it going to be the person who's actually, and let's hope we even find the person, right?
Right.
So that's where it becomes tough. What we've done when it comes down to, for example, the 100-unit project, we as city can put certain requirements for housing, for development to come in.
Okay.
To be able to put their business, their housing has a certain amount of parking available per unit.
Gotcha.
So it's like 2 or 3, give or take, depending on the unit.
Yeah, it's just kind of really, way out of control. You know what I mean? It's hard to regulate something like that. It's really tough. I understand the perspective on
parking
on this. What can the city really do about that, man? It's tough.
Look, I'm not saying that there's a crystal ball out there. I think when I go about finding solutions for a lot of this stuff, so I can't tell y'all enough how much time I've spent on trying to figure out this homeless conversation, right? Because I'm assuming it's not only LA that has this problem. You go to other states, you go to Vegas, there's people who live under the strip that are literally, there's a whole like neighborhood that lives under the strip because they have to live under there because of the heat up there, So what I do is a lot of the times, and I'll post it on my social media when I'm leaving City Hall, like 2 in the morning, 12 in the morning, whatever the case is. I'm literally just like reading studies, seeing YouTube videos a lot of times about, solutions that have, implemented different city solutions or different programs that cities have implemented to try to solve this issue, man.
Yeah.
With the parking one, I think the problem becomes the way our city was structured by the system, right? This idea that streets are only meant for cars, right?
Okay.
I mean, you go to Europe, you go to different countries. I mean, and a lot of times there's plazas. We don't have plazas here, where it's a community space where people can go ahead and sit down, have a coffee, enjoy that vibe, right? We don't have that in communities. In our community, our homes are tied to front yards. They're tied to having a liquor store in the corner, right? Because that's the only thing that was available to come in. When in reality, it should be a neighborhood market that's available with produce, dairy, you name it, the vital essentials that doesn't force me to drive all the way to El Tapatío. Shout out to El Tapatío
throughout the county. Oh,
yeah.
Tapatío back in the day. Yeah, man.
Diddy's
now.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, to be honest, that doesn't force me to drive to Food for Less. That doesn't force me to drive to Super 8. It should be a small little neighborhood, but instead we have liquor stores that, literally in their name, it says liquor store. And it gives a bad feel to the community, a bad feel to the neighborhood. So instead, we should implement some sort of laws where it requires our local neighborhood. And we have a ton of those little neighborhood markets in our city.
Yeah, Toño's. There's the other one.
Sarah's Mini Market.
Sarah's Mini Market by Jalisciencia.
It's a perfect example.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That they should have everything that a big store would have, potentially a couple cents more, but at least they won't require me to drive.
Exactly.
To get into a car and go drive out there.
Exactly.
So, again, it's the way our cities were structured.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's what we have laid out, but it don't. And again, we're talking about this new housing that's going to go up on Gage and Eastern. And I don't know if it's actually going to happen. These are just plans that, we changed the zone. I know that happened. So potentially putting commercial at the bottom, housing at the top. It doesn't no longer require someone to get in a car and drive to this place or that place, or whatever.
Right, right. Everything's a walking distance, or you could get on a bike. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Grabbing, that's again, man. It's again the way the system was set up.
Yeah.
And we just have to play with this. We just have to work with it, man. So.
And that's what it's gonna take, man. Finding examples of other solutions that have been implemented in other places, and bringing it into your community. You really, I feel like you did put some light on my question when you said more mini markets with essential items throughout the city, right? Like Toño's, like what's the other one? Sarah's. Those are the thing that I think of. El Acapulco, right?
There on Get Far. That's my closest.
Yeah, so I think there should be more of those, and little parks, coffee shops, things like that. Yeah.
Veterans Park, man, that's great. Veterans Park, Marlow Park, Darwell Park, Hannon Park.
Yeah.
Gotham. These are all smart parks.
The Bell Gardens is one of the few cities I see have a bunch of these little parks everywhere. I've been I see them in other cities, but maybe it's just because I grew up there. But I love that.
Yeah, man, that's the thing where if I don't have whatever if I you don't gotta pay money to go to the park. You got neighborhood park. You take care of that. You go spend some time there, man. I can't tell growing up in the city, and I grew up low income, on food stamps and all that stuff. Having the park was always a
yeah. What are you gonna do? Let's go hang out at the park.
It was I can't remember. Look, I'll tell you this. Growing up, man, the biggest memory going to Veterans Park, taking my bike. It would be me, my tias, my cousins. I grew up with no siblings, so my cousins were the closest thing I had to brothers. And going to Veterans Park with my bike. We'd bike around and take Little Caesars pizzas, $5, dude.
And that's your day.
And we're set, man.
Yeah, you had a good day.
That was the vibe back then, man. And now I get to go back to that park and just playing marbles. We used to play marbles as kids. I used to dance back in the day. I used to do videos and all that. I used to shuffle, Dougie, jerk, and all that.
Oh, yeah, dude. I remember all that back in the day.
And we did videos, man. And that's what we put out there. So, again,
The
you know,
Fixie era.
the whole Fixie era, man. That's all again close and dear to my heart, man.
Yeah.
You know, so again, I think parks again vital. When we did food distributions, right? When we give out food to the community, we did it at a park, man.
Yeah.
When we did vaccines, we did it at a park. You know,
Okay.
so it's again a vital place, man. I think parks are like heart and soul to
I agree,
community.
man. I agree. I have a lot of dear memories at parks and BG too. So I'm gonna start going toward the wrap up here, brother. I had a quick little rapid fire section, rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So that way people can get to know you a little bit better. So just first thing that comes to mind. Okay, going out or staying in?
I'll do going out.
Going out. You like to go out? Okay, cool. Describe your style in 1 to 3 words.
Oh man. Let's see. Man, this is hard, man. Why are you putting me on the spot?
1 to 3 words, bro.
1 to 3 words. I don't know if that's timed or not, but can you repeat the question?
Describe your style in 1 to 3 words.
Myself. Show up. I don't know if that's 2 words. I guess that's 2 words.
That's good. That's good.
And
That's good.
on top of it, I guess. I don't know,
there you
something
go,
like
bro.
that, man.
No, on top of it. I love it. Go to fast food spot.
Go to fast food spot. Chipotle.
Chipotle.
I like Chipotle a lot. I like Chipotle, Yoshinoya, Waba Grill.
Okay.
I mean, so I started this whole like fitness journey, and people, who follow me, I carry. I don't bring it right here, but I carry a gallon of water, and I'll show up to the council meetings with my gallon of water.
Yeah.
But I started this like fitness journey like a year and a half ago, man, and I just stick to drinking a lot of water.
There you go. Okay. Overspending or oversaving?
A little bit of both. I stay in the middle, man. If I see an opportunity to go on a trip, man, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're young. We gotta
For
go
sure.
ahead and travel, see the world, man. Because eventually I want to have a family, and it's gonna be difficult to travel with kids.
I like that, man. It's kind of hard to say one or the other. Your current favorite artist?
Oh man, that's easy. Logic.
Logic?
Love Logic.
Oh, that's right.
man.
You're rocking the Verge.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
Logic is one of, and I don't know if I said it publicly, but he's one of like my idols, man.
Sick.
One of them, right? And I mean, just like any artist, right?
Yeah.
They say bad stuff sometimes, but
Cool.
Logic is
Artist.
my favorite artist.
I
man.
love Logic. He's dope.
Peace, love, positivity all day, every day,
Absolutely.
man. That's what we're about. Love his message and hope to one day meet him.
Finish this phrase. The weight of my heart is.
Being yourself. Be yourself, man.
Love
don't
that.
try to impersonate nobody else. Stay humble. Stay to who you are. Represent, in this case, Bell Gardens. All of us can say that. Represent Bell Gardens with pride. That's what I told the community yesterday. The students, be yourself. Take pride in being from BG.
Yeah.
I always like to tell folks to this day where they don't know about BG, and I tell them we're like Downey but better. And
I like that, man.
And that's how it is, right?
There you go.
And someone else told me this line yesterday. It's like we're like Downey but better because we go up and Downey goes down.
Yeah.
So I gotta say it. Nothing, no hate to my Downey folks, but
Be proud to be from Bell Gardens.
Bell
Sean
Gardens.
orgullosos de ser de Bell Gardens, por favor.
así nomás.
Claro que sí. Okay. Any shout outs or acknowledgements?
Shout out to all the Bell Gardens Uncensored people that submitted questions. Muchas gracias a toda la gente del grupo de Facebook. I want to be able to have time to answer these questions. Not even say have time, but just having a personal conversation about this.
Okay.
Expect bigger things, and in
Cool.
terms of accessibility. And please to everybody that's watching, give me a call. 323-305-4567. Put it out there. So,
Cool, man.
yeah.
And that was my last question. Where can people follow you or learn more about you?
Yeah, so again, follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't really use Twitter. And Jorgel Chavez, the letter D at the end. So Jorgel Chavez D. Pretty active on Instagram, perhaps the most.
Cool.
And yeah, please shoot out, give me a call, text me 323-305-4567.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Jorgel, thank you so much for being part of the show, man. We had a lot of great discussions. Keep tuning in for Let's Get Real with Eric Claudio. You guys are going to see this episode and reach out to Jorgel. He's a great guy. He's fun to hang around with, and he's making a difference in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Shout out Gmoe. Have
Shout
a
out
good
Gmoe.
night. See you next time.